At one point I had to do some recording with Dxtory, but I was running out of hard drive space, so I wanted to have the files be pretty small file size but still have a good enough quality for stuff like YouTube. I looked into a bunch of different codecs and I came to the conclusion that x264 is the best for small file size and high quality balance. Also, I'm using the LAME MP3 codec for audio because it gives you a nice quality for a small file size. So here's the video tab on my Dxtory. As you can see, I'm recording in 60 FPS and using the x264 VFW codec. Okay, so what the VFW means is a video for Windows. It's an old system used by video encoders, and basically Dxtory does not support the x264 codec directly, but you can download the VFW version that some people have made for the codec, and you can use that with Dxtory to encode in x264, or rather H.264 using the x264 encoder. You can just Google x264 VFW and you'll find the link for the download. I don't want to link them myself because there are some sketchy sites like SourceForge that they're hosted on. Moving on to the x264 settings, you can see that I'm recording with the ultra fast preset, which you should always use if you're doing offline recording for the lowest performance impact. For the other settings on the basic panel, you can just copy my settings. You can pause the video if you need to. But what's important here is the rate control. There are a few different modes you can use, but I like to use the bitrate based, and you can set the average bitrate to be anything you want. In this image I have it set for 30,000, which is pretty good for 1080p 60 FPS, but as I've seen, you pretty much need to set it per game. Some games have a lot of detail that you need a lot of bitrate to encode, but for other titles lower bitrate is just fine. And especially if you're recording in 720p for example, you want to bring the bitrate down a bit to save on that precious hard drive space. You can also set the rate control to be lossless, which results in uncompressed files, but they are big. So if you want safe space like me, you don't want to use them. And lastly, the audio panel. I'm using the LAME MP3 with 192 kilobits per second. And in my opinion, 192 is plenty enough for stuff like YouTube. You can set it to be higher, like 320 if you really want to, but I don't think there's a significant amount of improvement in the quality. Here's a short comparison I did between 4 different bitrates. You can see the bitrate down at the bottom, and you can also see the file size. The game I'm running is Vanishing of Ethan Carter, and for some reason it stutters a bit, so that's not a fault of the encoding. But if your computer can run the game, there shouldn't be any problem recording it, unless you're recording in like 4K. Since YouTube's compression is notorious, this comparison won't mean much, but for that purpose I'm gonna show you some still frames of the different bitrates and zoom in so you can see the compression and judge for yourself which kind of bitrate you want to be recording with. But again, depending on the game, you want to set it yourself. For example, when I was running an older game at a smaller resolution, I could set the bitrate to 5000 and it already looked really good. So here's the first example at bitrate 15,000. And at a distance it looks pretty good, but once you zoom in, you can definitely see the compression artifacts around the tree and the background. But in motion, it doesn't look that bad. And again, YouTube really heavily compresses videos, so you're gonna lose that detail anyway. But of course, higher starting quality is gonna result in a higher ending quality, whereas compressing a compressed video, again, is even worse. And here's the second one at 30,000 bitrate. If you look closely, you can definitely see that it looks much better than the previous one. And zoomed in, it also looks much better. But you can still see a lot of compression artifacts around the tree and elsewhere as well. And finally in motion, probably pretty hard to tell through YouTube's compression. And at 50,000, now things are looking very good. Zoomed in, you can hardly see any artifacts. And all of that should also benefit the final video. Finally, lossless. Honestly, you can't really tell the difference between 50,000 and lossless until you compare them. Zoomed in, there's obviously no artifacts whatsoever. Recording in lossless has its benefits for sure, but if you wanna save space, you can't afford huge files like this one. And that's it. Again, if you want to get the best quality for yourself, you're gonna have to do some testing maybe do a few test recordings before your final recording. And remember, you gotta set the settings per game, in my opinion, to get the best results. Again, you can Google for these codecs online. I don't want to link them myself, but you'll find them. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching.